Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to first Monday in February. Thank you for being with us. And it day after is a little fuzzy up here, but the intriguing thing is, I went to a Super Bowl party yesterday. We had an open house at our house yesterday, so we were sort of out of sync all day. We had our dogs with us down here at the office and ran them back and forth. And the long and the short of it was, last night about 6:30 or 7 o'clock, we had a chance to go to a party we were invited to, and it was intriguing because all the parties in the past, and I'm sure there's nothing wrong with this, I'm not going to sit there and criticize, but most have an alcoholic beverage backdrop to it. It's an acceptable fact. It's a Bud Light night or whatever. But it was intriguing. At this party, there was no alcohol. And the beverage of choice that day was two large containers, actually three. One for non-sweet tea for us from the north, sweet tea from those in the south, and in the middle was some lemonade to make my Arnold Palmer drink. So there was tea on either side. And I know a lot of us make a habit out of having some tea every day. So I ask you the question, are you a habitual tea drinker? Now you're going to say, well, are you going to critique me on that? Are you going to say that's a bad thing? Because I know I'm a habitual coffee drinker. I've been a big believer in the antioxidants that do come with a properly brewed cup of coffee. I know I overdo it at times. My wife critiques me on that all the time. But I enjoy it. Nothing added to it. No cream, no sugar, just black coffee. And it's become very enjoyable. But I found a study over the weekend, and I'm going to keep it short and sweet today, about habitual tea drinking. Habitual tea drinking. Now, I'm not going to be here today to say I'm going to need to convince you to start drinking tea every single day. There's a whole myriad of different types of tea. Black teas, green teas, sweet teas, non-sweet teas. I'm not going to talk about the added ingredients in the tea. What I'm going to talk to you about is, do you do this on a regular basis? Do you have 1 or 2 cups of tea every single day? Because if you do, new evidence says it could be a good thing for your brain. So let's give it a double thumbs up. Research led by Dr. Junhua Lee recruited healthy older participants in 2 groups. This is the way we do studies around here. From a healthy older participants, drinking frequency of their tea history of tea drinking frequency, and investigated both functional and structural networks to reveal the role of tea drinking on brain organization. So this is a very scientific group that was done in, I believe this was in China, that took a look at the structure of the brain, the functioning of the brain, and the recall vision from the brain. So for those of us getting a little older, struggling at times for recall, could tea be the answer? The suppression of hemispheric asymmetry in the structural connectivity network was observed as a result of tea drinking. The suppression of hemispheric asymmetry. When the brain is symmetrically working and all the hemispheres are talking, the HPA axis of communication, when that's working, recall, memory, focus are all good. What this is saying is those that drank tea on a regular basis, they actually worded this as 2 negatives, basically said symmetry returned. The authors did not observe any significant effects of tea drinking on hemispheric asymmetry of the functional connectivity network. Tea has been a popular beverage since antiquity, with records referring to consumption dating back to the dynasty of Shang Nong, approximately 2,700 years before the birth of Christ. Tea is consumed in diverse ways, with brewed teas and products with tea ingredients extremely prevalent in Asia, especially in China and Japan. Although individual constituents of tea have been related to the roles of maintaining cognitive abilities and preventing cognitive decline, a study with behavioral and neuropsychological measures showed that there was a degraded effect or no effect when a constituent was administered alone, and a significant effect was observed only when constituents were combined. When we did it on a regular basis, the superior effect of the constituent combination was also demonstrated in a comparative experiment that suggested that tea itself should be administered instead of tea extracts. Tea itself, brewing good leaf tea, rather than the extracts that are coming in supplements. So we're looking at, you can find green tea extracts, green tea supplements, we can find those things. Didn't work the same for brain connectivity. A review of tea effects on the prevention of Alzheimer's disease found that the neuroprotective role of herbal tea was apparent in 8 out of 9 studies. You know, in a world that's gone basically crazy about Alzheimer's, and no matter what we do, we can't seem to slow it down. And again, today, the purpose of this show today was just to share this information with you. And I'm going to tell you where you can actually go look at it. But the fact that if you are a tea drinker, maybe you need to do it not on a really high dose, but on a regular dose. And making sure it's brewed. It's not some instant stuff that is put together in water. No, we want to brew tea. Whether it's cold or hot, we need to brew it. It's worth noting that the majority of studies thus far have evaluated tea effects from the perspective of neurocognitive and neuropsychological measures, with direct measurement of the brain structure or function less well represented in the extant literature. This group was actually saying that you could make structural changes to the brain. And again, remember, this article, this study was done with those that were elderly. Definition, probably over 60. These studies focused on the brain regional alterations and did not ascertain tea's effects on the interregional interactions at the level of the entire brain. Focused on regional alterations, looking at the areas of the brain responsible for memory, focus, and concentration. The Ling Feng research team, that's where you can look this up, L-I-F-E-N-G, Li Feng research team concluded, quote, in summary, our study comprehensively investigated the effects of tea drinking on brain connectivity at both global and regional scales using multi-model imaging data. They did MRIs of the brain, folks. They saw structural changes and provided the first compelling evidence that tea drinking positively constitutes and contributes to brain structure, making network organization more efficient. It's sort of like doing, you see those TV shows where there's an overhaul to a bar and they come in and fire everybody and change everything to make it more efficient. Or somebody comes into an office to make the office more efficient. We reorganize things. That's what we're doing here. We're reorganizing where I keep records. We're reorganizing a radio show. Now you see me every day, and we're doing this on YouTube. And there's a whole myriad of shows on the past. We'll be having a whole channel set up here very shortly. And all I ask you to do is share it with others. So if somebody told you, man, I gotta really cut back on my tea consumption, you can say, the odds ratio of me, a tea drinker, developing Alzheimer's is much less than yours. Now, the number to reach us here, if you want a copy of that, and I'm going to tell you this is where you can get it, www.aging-us.com. And attached to that, you search article 102023, 102023. That'll bring up the article itself. If you didn't get that, you can call us here at 678-228-8900. 678-228-8900. Now, that was short and sweet. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to talk about a spice called saffron. Could it be the item you've been looking for to help you deal with depression? Really. We'll talk about that in tomorrow's show. Here's a little bit more of what's been in the news lately. New England Journal of Medicine, first U.S. case of novel coronavirus confirmed. A man in Washington State has become the first person in the U.S. to become ill with the novel coronavirus, originally identified in Wuhan City, China, the CD announced. The man, who is in his 30s, had traveled to Wuhan recently but did not report visiting the animal and seafood market that had been previously implicated in the outbreak. The patient is in good condition at Providence Medical Center and does not have severe symptoms. The virus has sickened close to 300 people in China and others in Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and Thailand. Human-to-human transmission has been confirmed. CDC stepping up its airport screening. Story number 2. This is intriguing. Sunscreen absorbed into the blood. Consequences unknown. Chemical sunscreen ingredients are systematically absorbed after one application, and some ingredients can stay in the blood for at least 3 weeks, according to an FDA study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. In a lab setting, 48 adults were randomized to receive one of 4 formulations of chemical sunscreens containing avobenzone, oxybenzone, octocrylene, homosalate, octasalate, octinoxonate. Sunscreen was applied once on the first day and 4 times on day 2 through 4. Participants had 34 blood samples collected over 21 days. The maximum plasma concentration over days 1 through 21, the primary outcomes, and it gives you numbers. They basically say over half the participants studied had above threshold plasma levels 21 days after application. All they say after this is, our findings reinforce the need for further studies on sunscreen safety. The next study, for teens undergoing bariatric surgery, mental health issues persist 5 years later. You know, in this dawn of this obesity epidemic, it's one thing to say, my child now qualifies. They're so morbidly obese that it could be life-sustaining to have bariatric surgery. But the mental side of this, the mental side of not only going for the surgery, but dealing with the obesity and then the weight loss and then taking away the food, can give us mental health issues aggressively. Adolescents who undergo bariatric bypass face a substantial mental health burden 5 years later, according to a study in Lancet Child and Adolescent Health. Researchers matched 81 teens who underwent gastric bypass to 80 teens who received conventional obesity treatment. During follow-up, the proportion of patients who received medication for a psychiatric condition increased in both groups, with no significant difference between surgery and conventional treatment at the 5-year mark, 43 and 34% respectively. Take away food, start to make changes, affect the person's dopamine levels, brain levels, and psychiatric levels. It's amazing how the addictive potential of food. Novel coronavirus grows as the World Health Organization considers declaring a public health emergency. The number of laboratory-confirmed cases has ballooned to more than 540. That's in 1 day since the last time I reported. On Wednesday of last week, the World Health Organization decided whether the outbreak constituted a public health emergency. Wuhan City, China, the epicenter of the outbreak, will be shutting down public transportation within the city. Planes and trains also won't be able to leave the city starting Thursday, the New York Times reports. FDA reports and approves a treatment for C. difficile in kids. You know, this is a horrible hospital-derived, typically, bacterial infection that results in really horrible diarrhea. The FDA has expanded approval of the macrolide antibiotic fidaxomicin, brand name Diflucid, to treat C. diff associated diarrhea in children 6 months and older. For children, the drug will be available as an oral suspension or tablets. The tablets were previously indicated for adults. Approval was based on a randomized trial of some 150 children with confirmed C. difficile infection who were assigned to receive this or vancomycin, that's that end-stage antibiotic, for 10 days. 2 days after the treatment ended, the rate of clinical response was similar for the two groups, so it did work as well as Vanco, which needed to be kept as a backdrop. Last article for today. Black barbershops could ID undiagnosed diabetes. Testing blood glucose levels in black barbershops might help to identify undiagnosed diabetes, according to JAMA Internal Medicine. At 8 barbershops owned by blacks in Brooklyn, New York, nearly 900 black men without diagnosed diabetes were asked if they'd like to participate in the study. Roughly a third consented to have their blood glucose levels checked on site. Of the 290 men successfully tested, 9% had a hemoglobin A1C of 6.5 or higher and were considered to have diabetes. In addition, 28% had levels between 5.7 and 6.4, which constitutes prediabetes. Of note, some customers agreed to be tested after encouragement from their barber. The authors conclude, our findings suggest that community-based diabetes screenings in barbershops owned by black individuals may play a role in the timely diagnosis of diabetes and may help to identify black men who need appropriate care for their newly diagnosed diabetes. We'll continue with some more of the news on tomorrow's show. I want to encourage you, share the show with others. And again, tomorrow we're going to deal with depression and the use of a spice called saffron, S-A-F-R-O-N. Have a great, healthy day, folks. God bless you. And again, to reach me here at the office, 678-228-8900, 678-228-8900. See you back here tomorrow, folks. God bless.